Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here on this Tuesday, June 19th, 2018, coming up on 6 o'clock Eastern Time, back to a 6 o'clock start tonight. Apologize for the schedule shifts from day to day, but there are other things going on, so I have to kind of make the time when I have it. Plus the fact that there was some heavy thunderstorm activity going on the radar right now across parts of the northern mid-Atlantic states, so I figured let me jump on while we've got some thunderstorms around. As always, let me just say off the bat, if you are watching this later on this evening or during the overnight with regards to whatever radar and satellite shots you see, but particularly with regards to the radar shots and the threat for severe weather, do please check your local National Weather Service forecast office page for the latest radars and any severe thunderstorm warnings that may, or tornado warnings or whatever that may be up for your particular area. Meanwhile, as we are now at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, we are watching an east-west band of thunderstorms moving southward across northern Virginia, just north of Richmond over the Delmarva Peninsula. There's some strong cells in there. There have been some severe thunderstorm warnings that were issued by the Washington, D.C. Weather Office, and that east-west line continues to shift southward. This is due to this cold front that moved through my area yesterday, and it took a little while this morning to get the clouds to sink southward, but indeed they did, and you can see on the visible satellite loop where these thunderstorms are firing up near that frontal boundary. The clouds still kind of clipping parts of southern New Jersey and down near the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, but overall we are going to avoid any problems here. The Northeast kind of in a nice cutout there of clear skies, but we do have an extensive area of showers and thunderstorms thanks to the fact that we've got this east-west frontal boundary to the south that's going to buckle on Wednesday, and just to the south of it, as Sebastian P. points out, hitting 100 degrees today in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was very hot across southern Virginia and North Carolina. South of that frontal boundary, that's where we have the big heat at the moment. We had it over parts of most of our area, but not all here yesterday, especially if you were on the coast with south-facing shorelines. You were spared temperatures that were up in the low to mid-90s. Now here's the severe weather risk for this evening from the Storm Prediction Center. We've got this large east-west band with a marginal risk. This really kind of outlines where the frontal boundary is. And we have actually a tornado watch up for the eastern half of Colorado. Back into in Kansas, we've got a severe thunderstorm watch that has now been posted, and that's all encased inside that area of slight to enhanced risk. We have marginal risk going to the east, and then that area of slight risk that is over parts of Virginia. So this frontal boundary is going to buckle a bit to the north. We've got relatively dry, cooler air to the south, hot and humid conditions, which is what you would expect, particularly just south of that frontal boundary in southern Virginia, North Carolina today, with those temperatures around the century mark. But we're going to take a look at a couple of things today with regards to where we're going. You know, the spring is just about done as the first day of summer looms, and I want to bring up the upper air. Now, you know, bear in mind, folks, you know, we're talking here about the long range, and I've said this many times. I am not really good at the long range. Short range is one thing. Long range for me is quite another. And part of the problem is it's hard for me to really get my head around it. And I've said this many times. And I put up a post today on the website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com, which I would say was at least misinterpreted by one particular person. This is not a forecast for the summer. I am just looking at what's happening now and taking it out into next week. I'm always cautious when it comes to trying to figure out anything beyond that because of the difficulty in trying to forecast. But one of the things that's been very persistent over the last number of weeks. Now, it hasn't been straight this way. It has changed from time to time. We've gotten a break from the primary pattern that happened yesterday. The big ridge that built into the eastern part of the United States and brought the hot weather to the northeast. Well, we've been saying how the pattern basically favors these things to just last for a day or two before ultimately breaking down. And this is what we're seeing here. Again, the ridge popped up and then went away. And that's because we have this persistent troughing that basically runs from the polar region down off into the Canadian Maritimes and into easternmost New England. So as a result, we keep we've got this persistent jet coming down from northwest Canada, so we keep getting these shots of cooler air. The flow is also split because you've got this jet in the Pacific that's coming in, and that is bringing some weather systems along. We've got another one here. This is for Thursday, by the way, Thursday afternoon, and we have a weather system here that is moving into the middle Mississippi Valley, and this is going to be a weather maker for the eastern part of the U.S. for Friday and Saturday. A ridge of high pressure along the west coast is evident, and it is also rather flat. And what I mean by flat is that the flow to the north of it is basically west to east. It's not a ridge that's popping all the way up into western Canada per se, where the flow along the coast of California and Washington aloft is from the south, and then it turns northwesterly into Canada. So you've got this split flow with this flat ridge off down in southern California, southern Arizona. You do have, on the northern part of the split, you've got another ridge that builds up from the Canadian northwest on northwestward toward Alaska. So you can see how the whole upper air is rather tilted, and there is some amplitude in this upper air pattern, especially in the east. So consequently, you keep getting these changes, and I really don't see this changing too much going into next week. Also, notice in the Atlantic, by the way, you've got not a whole lot of ridging going on, kind of a flat high that's way out in the Atlantic. The westerlies, meaning the jet stream, the westerly winds in the upper layers of the atmosphere, extend fairly far to the south, down south of Bermuda. This is actually not too unusual for this time of year. We can't seem to get a finger on where this is going to go in the longer term, so we can kind of just use the models here as a guide. And one of the things that happens as we go into next weekend, this coming weekend, I'm sorry, and I'm going to get rid of this, and we're going to jump to the jet stream pattern for Sunday. And here we have yet another trough that is coming into the picture, into the east. So once again, you can't really get too warm around here with a pattern like this. These troughs keep coming through. Here's the outline for the one for Sunday. And by the way, the air that's coming down behind this for this time of year, it's a fair, I wouldn't say impressive, but it's not a half bad shot of cool air that's coming down for the early part of next week. It might play out into some 40s for lows across upstate New York and in through New England. We have some energy back into the southern Rockies here, and as that moves along, you can see that part of the jet goes up into the northwest, and then part of it comes down into the southwest. Ridge off the Atlantic coast starts to build east of Bermuda a little bit, but we don't see any signs of ridging here in the east, obviously, with that kind of a trough that's swinging around. So until we can get, this whole mess that exists in the upper air, all of this, this entire area back through here, this has all got to change here. You've got, there's a vortex sitting east of Labrador. You've got basically another cutoff low sitting up in the Arctic regions north of Alaska. So until we kind of break this down a bit, or at least break this trough in the eastern states, it's going to be, again, very hard for it to get warm or hot for anything more than a day or two. Now, of course, areas to the south, down across the southern states, this is, typical summertime. So it's always hot with temperatures up in the 90s. That's not going to change. You're not going to be able to push a front all the way down off the southeast coast of the United States. So at least from that standpoint, that part of the equation is going to be the same across the south, across the Gulf, and down in the southwest and into Southern California. It's summertime. It's hot. That's what happens. So I'm going to jump now. We're going to switch off to the GFS here. Let's see if I can. I'm going to try to bring it up a different way so that we can take a look at, a bit wider of a view, and I think we got it here, so that's good. And there's your upper air into early next week. Why don't we? We'll show you how we get there, and that's just want to make sure you guys have it all centered here so that you can see what I'm talking about. And come on, work, folks. There we go. So we finally got that going here. And, there's your... Why can't I get this to move? This is weird. Try it one more time. Okay, now I know what I'm doing. All right, I'm sorry. Okay, so here we have it. There's your trough in the east for Thursday. That lifts out. Now here comes that system from the plains. That's going to lift northward. We're probably going to get into some showers here late Friday or Friday night into Saturday. And at least from the standpoint of the new GFS, this is Monday morning. You see there's a strong shortwave there that's swinging around over the Great Lakes. Why don't I back up one run? And it's a little deeper on this run than on the previous run, but I think ultimately it's going to be the same outcome here with this shot of cool air that comes in for the first part of next week. And notice once that lifts out, you do get a bit of ridging, but there's still energy that's back up through the Great Lakes, and then you have a trough coming in to the west toward the end of the period. So it's trying to build a ridge here toward the end of the month and going into the beginning of July. Now, whether that's sustainable or not remains to be seen, because as we move into the first week, you've got the model trying to make another trough there in the eastern part of the United States, or at least swing something through. But, of course, as you know, anything beyond, you start getting beyond the 7-8 day time frame, you're going to run into greater and greater variability. But we are, at least at this point, not seeing the establishment of any kind of long-term heat wave. Although if you look at this, you do have the ridge building in the middle of the country toward the end of the period, and that is going to mean for hot weather across the plains and Midwest, and they've seen their share of it so far this summer. So it kind of indicates to me maybe the ridge wants to go back in the middle again with troughs on either side. Part of the mystery in all of this, of course, and always a game in figuring all this out. Now, back to the short range. So why don't we take a look at what's going on as far as the daily weather is concerned. I want to make sure you guys can see the date here. Okay, so if you want, the date runs right across the top of the map so you can follow. So we're at this afternoon's 2 p.m. this afternoon. And here comes that energy coming in from the middle Mississippi Valley. You've got this low that is moving into Iowa. Meanwhile, a piece of that, a little wave, develops ahead of it. So that'll bring in a little rain to the northern mid-Atlantic states and into my neck of the woods for later Wednesday, or for me, Wednesday night. But then by Thursday, it's gone. And notice you've got another high that stretches across from South Dakota over to the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. So this is going to create an ocean flow for Thursday and Friday, but particularly for Friday. So that's going to keep temperatures a bit on the cool side, relatively speaking. It'll still be in the 70s to maybe near 80. And here comes the low for Saturday that moves out of the middle Mississippi Valley, heads up toward eastern Michigan. So there's going to be a bit of a warm front here with some showers probably for Saturday. Also, notice there's more energy that's coming down into southern plains, and that could perhaps trigger off some severe weather across parts of Kansas and Oklahoma, and maybe even into Arkansas along about later Friday night. So this system in the Northeast plays through on Saturday with some showers and storms. Then it gets out of the way, and here comes the drier air with a nice little high. That's a 1025 millibar high this time of year. That's for this time of year, that's pretty strong. And so that's going to push down some cooler air into the Northeast Monday into Tuesday, and then after that it does move out. So now we start to deal with, how this, is there going to be a ridge building somewhere toward the end of the month? Notice, by the way, because I know everybody's going to see it, yeah, it does spin up some kind of a low west of Bermuda here in the longer range, but we don't pay attention to these things until they're inside certainly inside the 7-day time frame, and preferably inside the 5-day time frame, because we know that model variability and how models like to spin things up from place to place and from time to time. So going forward, it looks like it would at least suggest that it could turn very warm and humid in the east for the first days of July before maybe some other front comes roaring through. We'll see. Why don't we could take a look maybe at the European upper air, and we'll bring up the upper air of the European to see, what kind of differences do we have here. And here is the European's view. I'm going to let's go to day 7, all right? So that is next Tuesday. So at this point, the models are pretty similar in bringing this trough through the east for Sunday into Monday. So the Europeans pretty much on the same page as the GFS as far as that cool shot is concerned. And then gradually, as we get by day 10, it does start to build some ridging through the plains into the Midwest, and then off the Atlantic coast, it's also building some ridging there. So the jet on the European retreats back to near the Canadian border, a little bit of troughing in the west. The GFS for the same period, it has a little more amplitude to it, where it's got some kind of open low here. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the new run. That's a mistake. Let me just bring up the old 240 on the GFS, and I'll switch it back to the European. So here's the GFS's view. Has a deeper trough out in the west versus the European here, as we saw. So that's the GFS next Friday, and here's the European next Friday. So it does have a little bit of troughing in the west, but not as deep as the GFS. Kind of an east-west ridge that it tries to build toward the end of next week. So at least through the first part of next week, we're going to continue in the pattern that we're in, and then maybe we'll start to see some adjustments as we head toward the last days of June and into the beginning of July. By no means did I even remotely suggest in my post today that what is happening is something that is for the whole summer, okay? I don't know where people get this idea that, I specifically wrote that it was about the very beginning of the summer, and where the pattern goes after that remains to be seen. But not everybody. When you put up, one of the things I learned with writing a lot of the weather posts that I write is that I may write them, but people don't necessarily read them. They read the headline, or they read the descriptor paragraph that's that I'll put on Facebook, and jump to all sorts of wrong conclusions without actually reading the post. Shelly Man Studios, you went live with the thunderstorms in Connecticut. Awesome. Those thunderstorms moved very, very quickly, and then that second line that was coming down last night, which the HRRR model really went kind of nuts with, although it did show that line weakening as it approached the coast. They wound up weakening a whole lot faster. Yes, Delvin, will be losing daylight, but it's a good 6 weeks before the temperatures peak. And thank you, Shelly Man. My voice does sound better, much better today. I'm almost at the end of this. Beautiful sunny day in Bensalem, PA. Should have gone to Parks Racetrack, Scott Olson. Timothy Veltman, some pretty decent storm damage to the north up by you in Saratoga. Timothy, can you confirm? I saw something yesterday. A possible tornado up in the Saratoga Springs area, at least by some observer reports. But I wasn't watching at the point of whether the Weather Service actually had a tornado warning up. I know there was one up for east central Massachusetts near Worcester, but I didn't hear too much about either of those possible tornadoes. So if you've got some info, I'd appreciate it if you share it very much. Classic Midwest summer, says Mary Daniels. Bunches and bunches of evening fireflies, cool and damp after the daily thunderstorm, watching the cumulus build giant white fortresses. You love it. Yeah, you Mary, you're looking at it the right way. That's exactly the way to approach this. And your son James was born today, Sean K., 7 pounds, 20 inches. Congratulations. Good for you. Is it your first? Congrats to you. I just had my first grandson back 6 weeks ago. Nothing like it. And I remember all my children on the days that they arrive, and you will never ever forget it. Congratulations to you. Anthony Orr, new report out from Colorado State University. The vertical wind shear in the Caribbean over the past month has been much higher than average, and the waters in the tropical Pacific are still cold, as they are, by the way, also in the Caribbean itself. I was looking today at the water temperatures in the Caribbean are running about 1 degree Celsius below average, and in fact, the overall Atlantic Ocean profile of the water temperatures across the tropical Atlantic remain as they were a week ago and running below normal. And when you swing up into the North Atlantic, where that water is bleeding down from, you're seeing some temperature anomalies of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius. So that's significantly colder water. If that is still there come August and September, that could change the profile of the hurricane season ahead. Hard to say how it would change it. It would, the logical thing is to say, well, the colder ocean would mean perhaps fewer storms, or maybe it would mean storms that would be less strong. Perhaps major hurricanes status. There might be fewer major hurricanes, but you got to be careful with that, because you don't know whether the same ocean water temperature profile that you have now is going to be the same ocean water temperature profile you're going to have come August and September into early October. Timothy says hasn't heard anything official. There were 2 warnings in New Hampshire and in Massachusetts. Gotcha. Very hot and humid in New York City yesterday, Dio, but not today. Those dew points dropped today. It was a lot more comfortable, even though temperatures were in the mid to upper 80s. Let's see. Is there any heavy rain and thunderstorms in this weekend in Connecticut. Matthew Warman, Saturday will be the day where there will be some showers and thunderstorms running around. I don't think it's an all-day washout kind of thing, but there will be the risk for some showers on Saturday. But I think Sunday may turn out to be okay. Sunday could wind up being something like today, where we see early clouds giving way rather quickly to some sunshine. But we're going to have to check to see if that upper trough swings through Sunday afternoon. You might have some buildups and some instability downpours that could develop. You know what? I'm going to look at that as we go through the next couple of days. But I would say right now, from what I'm looking at, Saturday is definitely the better of the two weekend days. How about the hail in Colorado? Well, you know, nobody does hail better than the Plain States and in the Rockies, where they have some hail the size of basketballs, it seems. I'm just going to check off camera. We do have inside that area, that tornado watch that's up for eastern Colorado, and we are seeing numerous severe thunderstorm warnings right now. This is at 6:24 Eastern Time, so bear that in mind. I'm just going to bring up the local National Weather Service forecast page, and you can see it here. And there you have it. So right now, I just pulled it up, centered over Boulder, and the brown severe thunderstorm warnings, the dark red flash flood warnings, the yellow, that is the tornado watch. And this is very important, by the way. Again, when you were watching these videos, if you're watching them on the live stream, it's one thing. But if you're watching them a couple of hours after the live stream, as we're coming up on 6:25 Eastern Time, so if you're watching these later this evening or during tonight, obviously these current weather conditions aren't going to apply. So you're going to want to go to weather.gov, and you can check your local National Weather Service office. In fact, I can do that for you right now. I'll just show you how to do this. But if you go to weather.gov, and I'll bring the map up a little bit front and center. So, here's your, on this map, just find where you are geographically, and you just click on it, and you can go to your local National Weather Service office. So, if I put my mouse over western Kansas, for example, and we click on it, in theory, there we go. So now we've gone to the National Weather Service office in Goodland, Kansas, and you can see it here. So at this point, at 6:26 Eastern Time, we're looking at the Salmon area. That's the severe thunderstorm watch. The yellow on the Colorado side is the tornado watch, and the the brownish areas by county are all the severe thunderstorm warnings that are up, or parts of counties. And that red box, for example, that is indicating a flash flood warning. The lighter green area, those are, I believe, those are flood advisories that are up for a couple of counties in western Kansas. So this is kind of how the Weather Service here is so. When we look at what is available to us, and if you pull up the weather services from other countries, they just absolutely pale by comparison in terms of the amount of information that is so readily available to you. So do take advantage of all that is up there from the National Weather Service. They do an absolutely fantastic job staying on top of the weather all over the place. Aaron and Raybert, I was kidding about the hail the size of basketballs, okay? I was kidding about that. I was using hyperbole, okay? They really didn't have hail the size of basketballs. Matthew Warman, were there any severe weather reports in Connecticut from yesterday? I don't remember. I think there were some severe thunderstorm warnings that were up for Litchfield County at one point, but I didn't see anything else after that. There might have been the stray severe thunderstorm warning. I don't, but I really didn't see too much. That line that came down was weakening as it moved southeastward. And part of the big reason for that is the fact that I mentioned yesterday how Long Island had a south wind. Well, that south wind went all the way up into Connecticut, so the marine layer plays a role. It stabilizes the atmosphere. In other words, temperatures don't fall sharply as you go up in height. And in fact, the Storm Prediction Center made it a point yesterday of saying that the lapse rates were not that impressive. In fact, they said they were quite poor. So that held them back from putting up a severe thunderstorm watch for Connecticut and for New York City and northern New Jersey. There was a lot of lightning and thunder when those storms went by, but they really didn't live up to severe criteria, thankfully. Now, of course, we've had a much better day today. In fact, coastal areas were warmer today than yesterday because instead of having the south wind, we had the northwest wind, and that's how coastal areas in the northeast with south-facing shorelines see some of their highest temperatures. Matthew Warman, with respect to, I don't think you're going to see anything rain-wise during the day side tomorrow, maybe tomorrow evening or tomorrow night. But I think the day side tomorrow for you in Connecticut will be dry. Scott Olson, what is the lapse rate? Okay, that's how fast temperatures are falling relative to height. So the higher you go into the atmosphere, the temperature is going to normally be lower as you go up in height. So if you have a situation, say in a normal atmosphere, it's about 5 degrees Fahrenheit for every 1,000 feet. But if you are seeing the lapse rate higher than that, in other words, the temperatures are falling faster than that particular rate as you go higher, that is telling you that you have a very unstable atmosphere. And when you have strong lapse rates, you can get good vertical lift or vertical motion, upward motion. You get this is where you could see some strong to severe thunderstorm development. And in the case of the areas down close to the coast yesterday in southern Connecticut, Long Island, New York City, and through northern and central New Jersey, the lapse rates were not that impressive. Yes, Joyce Mack, I'm finding my way back to Wellville. This is the best my voice has been in 8 days, so I am quite happy. I think I may need, one of the problems this time of year if you get laryngitis is the fact that you're going in and out of air conditioning all the time, and that I think delays the healing process. But definitely made a big improvement over the last day or two. So I think in another day or so I should be back to normal. I'm not grabbing for tea, which is great. Water is fine, and I can have my second cup of coffee because it's not drying me out. Still a little bit, you could probably hear it, but it's not as bad as what it was. Okay, so this was a nice long one today. Now that I got my voice back, I can talk longer, which is good. So we're going to leave it here at this point. The tropics are quiet, by the way, and they probably will stay quiet for the next 4 or 5 days at least. Hurricane Center not predicting any kind of cyclone development over the next 5 days of any kind, and not even acknowledging any systems. Nicole Sweet, there is a tropical wave east of the windwards, but the conditions there are highly unfavorable for development. By the time Joyce back, by the time you lose your voice completely, it's usually when you finally start to feel better. Can hear it still, but way better. Yeah, the funny thing is, I had a cold 2 weeks ago. That went through me in about 4 or 5 days, and physically I was fine. Then the voice went after the cold was done. So I don't know if I had 2 different things going on, but it's happened to me before where I've had, if I get a cold, where I wind up losing my voice after I recover from the cold. So this is not unusual for me, although this is probably the first time in a long, long time that I've actually lost my voice. So anyway, let me preserve it so that we can do the Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight on Facebook, and I think we're back to our normal time, which will be well, I'm trying to remember last night that I got to check on this. Last night we did do it again at 8:50. So I'm going to assume that we're still in 8:50 p.m. mode. You can check that out on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. I'm sorry, on Facebook on meteorologist Joe Cioffi, or on Joe Rayo's Facebook page, Joe Rayo Weather. Thank you, Nicole Sweet. I appreciate the kind words. You were very kind indeed. And the website posts are up. You can check those out on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And what else did I want to tell you? Oh, just as a disclosure, you can shop on Amazon if you use the link that's on the descriptor to this live stream or on the descriptor to this video. I really appreciate it very much. We're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC Associates Program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for this channel to earn some fees from Amazon by linking to Amazon.com and their affiliated sites. And I appreciate those of you who have used that link as a way of bringing support to my channel. It doesn't cost you a dime. You get your stuff, and Amazon throws me a little bit of coin, and everybody's happy. Okay, have a great day, rest of your day, and a great night ahead. We will see you tomorrow.